This is to declare the meeting open and just advise that the city's live streaming policy, by being in the public gallery, you're authorising your voice or image to be live broadcast. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here, and before commencing proceedings, I would like to acknowledge that we come together tonight on the land of the Noongar people and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Could I call upon Councillor Kearney to read the dedication?
May we, the elected members of the City of Kwinana, have the wisdom to consider all matters before us with due consideration, integrity and respect for the Council Chamber. May the decisions made be in good faith and always in the best interests of the greater Kwinana community that we serve.
Attendance, apologies, leave of absence previously approved. We have the Deputy Mayor. Public question times, I'm not aware that there has been any questions submitted. Do councillors have any petitions to present? Any presentations? There are no deputations. Confirmation of the minutes from the meeting held on the 14th of August 2024. Is there any additional information? Councillors have any questions? Someone like to move that way? Moved Councillor Wood, seconded Councillor Rouse. Sorry. Would either councillor like to speak? Anyone speak against? I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Does anyone have a declaration of interest? Nil. Request for leave of absence? Nil. There's nothing on item 10, nothing on item 11. Item 12 is the CEO performance review and setting of the 2024-25 key performance indicators, which, do we need to move that to the end, or do we just deal with that at the end? We'll deal with that at the end. There's nothing item 13. 14.1 budget variations. Is there any additional information? Councillors have any questions? Councillor Sargent.
Thank you. 14.1, page 17, item 2. Could you please give some explanation? It says that an overarching service need advocacy position for the Kwinana Rockingham region, and that was this the wording that was presented in the grant application as such. I know in my experience within the Kwinana area that to have an advocacy position that is separate for Rockingham for the people in Kwinana versus region-based approach to make sure that the people in Kwinana are actually getting service provision and it's not all based in Rockingham for there is a larger population. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's right. We got 150,000 from the district leadership group, and part of that was the service gap analysis. So we'll be doing a service gap analysis for Kwinana, obviously looking at the current needs we have and the service that we're experiencing and what those gaps are. So the regional advocacy framework or position is something that we're working with Rockingham with. So to look at what are the similar needs between us and Rockingham and advocating on a regional level, and obviously that will flow down to a local level as well. So it's very much, there's two pieces of work. The first piece of work is the service gap analysis for Kwinana, which we can use that to advocate for Kwinana, plus the regional approach as well.
Any additional questions? Councillor Kearney.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask about the district, Rockingham Kwinana District Leadership Group. Can you explain more about that? It's a government organisation, isn't it? Group?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the district leadership group, there's numerous district leadership groups across the whole state. I think there's about 13 or 14 of those. So it's the director is the district Director Generals from all the government agencies, so Department of Communities, Department of Housing, Department of Health, Department of Education and so forth. And then obviously we've got an opportunity as a local government to sit on that group as well. So the main aim is to look at some of those strategic issues across the region. Our region is Kwinana Rockingham. And then how do we advocate for increased funding, changing policy positions and that sort of thing. So it's very much a strategic group to change the direction to provide services locally.
Any other questions? Councillor Sargent?
Thank you. Just a follow-up from that, how are you going to approach the needs analysis? Is that going to be a community consultation, or is this that higher level statistics from the Department of Communities for say, or the local police statistics would that be that level document, or is this a more community consultative approach?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we haven't really determined that as yet, but we'll be going out for a quote to get a consultant to do that work for us. And a part of that scope of work will be to do some community engagement work. So we'll be engaging with community, local service providers and so forth to identify those needs. And obviously those needs will be coming from the local agencies, but also from state government using those stats and forecasts as well to identify, you know, what services are provided. And I think a critical thing that the district leadership group has identified is how do we ascertain the funding coming into our community, and is that being used in the best possible way? So there'll be very much an approach around that to identify where that funding is being used and where those gaps are.
Any other questions? Someone like to move that way? Moved Councillor Sargent, seconded Councillor Kearney. Would either councillors like to speak? Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mayor Feasey. I just want to, I know this is a three-facet motion, but especially knowing that you are advocating and that body of work to be able to come back to go, this is what Kwinana needs, and here is how we can ensure that funds are actually going to the people on the ground, is something that I highly recommend, and thank you so much for city staff for taking that action. I also just want to say that it's fantastic to see the Indigenous Playgroup funding coming through, as well as the Coolini funding. These are all fantastic things for our community, and I hope we all vote yes. Thank you.
Councillor Kearney, no? Anyone speak against? Put to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 14.2, amendment of schedule of fees and charges, Call-In Arts Centre. Is there any additional information?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Questions from councillors? Someone like to move that way? Moved Councillor Penny, seconded Councillor Sargent. Would either councillors like to speak? No? Anyone speak against? Put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. There's nothing in item 15. Item 16.1, City of Kwinana Environment Strategy 2024 to 2034. Is there any additional information?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors have any questions in relation to this policy? We do have the Manager of Environment at the back of the room if anyone has any questions. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my first question is around the urban forest strategy in the environmental strategy. It mentions, and I quote, establish and maintain an urban forest that will achieve 22.6% canopy cover for the council area to support local biodiversity and reduce urban heat impacts. So my question is, how does the 22.6%, how did that goal get derived, and what does that look like kind of in reality for the everyday person in Kwinana?
Through you, Your Worship, the current coverage that we have at the moment is around the 19.8%. And the piece of work that's happening at the moment is the urban forest strategy. So that has yet to come before council. So that is underway. And we've been fortunate enough, and part of the reason why we, staggered this report coming to council at this point is to get that first draft cut of where we would be best positioned in terms of getting I guess, a target around canopy cover and what that would look like and what potentially is feasible when the consultants had a look at the amount of land that is available and putting some parameters around the number of trees per square metre, etc., in those areas that we can influence. So this is not about the private realm, it is more about the public realm. And so there have been considerable calculations around that. The urban forest strategy is still to be adopted and obviously will need to come before council in its own right. And that number, that 22.6, is from the first initial cut. So that could change, but that was just to give that direction as to where that strategy is leaning at the moment. So I can't give you the detail of the calculations, but that will come before council in due course.
Any other questions?
Yes, Your Worship. Just off the back of that one, and maybe it's a work in progress, kind of around what the main constraint or challenge is about being a bit more ambitious or going for a higher target. Is that because of the constraint for being able to influence kind of council-owned properties versus the private realm, or are there other challenges or constraints that would restrict us going higher?
One of the biggest challenges will be cost, pure and simple. It will be the cost of planting and maintaining an urban forest of a certain size and mass over time. So that will be one of the key factors. We're also looking at what contributed assets there will be in terms of trees planted through our new subdivisions and so on, and the retention of those and how we can beef up that element, so how they're contributed. But cost is a big factor, and that's something that the city will have to consider in determining how far we can go.
And just one more question on the trees, if I may.
Sure.
So it also mentions in that same section, we will encourage and support landowners to plant and maintain trees on their property, so I guess the private realm. Is the intent that kind of planning and approvals will be adjusted to facilitate that, or is it more about existing properties that can allow for trees to be planted? Just noting a lot of the, I guess, new developments and kind of the more recent ones have very small property sizes, so there's a challenge that exists for planting trees that will grow quite big.
So there's probably two parts to that answer. The first part is really around what we're currently doing around our biodiversity aspect of tree planting. So through the adopted local biodiversity strategy, we've piloted a stewardship program, and that is working in those rural areas east of the freeway to really focus in on those high priority, what we call local natural areas that have been identified as having biodiversity values, and supporting private landowners in identifying weeds, managing those weeds, identifying their species that they have on site, and then looking at planting opportunities. So there's that aspect of it. And then what this strategy is also identified, which is also highlighted in the local planning strategy, is looking at what part of the policy framework in the planning realm we can look at planting opportunities and landscape opportunities for new development that comes online. So that will be part of, I guess, a suite of sustainability initiatives that include, built form initiatives as well as planting opportunities. But that still has yet to be, I guess, developed, and we need to investigate what those options might look like.
Councillor Sargent?
Sorry, I had some other questions, but on the back of what Councillor Brown was just saying, when we're discussing the percentage of canopy cover and the urban forest strategy, I'm just curious, in this planning work of this higher level, are we looking at what potential summer care watering plans may need to be added to new tree plantings in Kwinana with the recorded impact of heat waves causing mass tree deaths throughout Western Australia? So whether the care plan for what we have done needs to adapt to what we do to ensure that the value we're adding to our ecosystem, the investment we've made, as well as the volunteer investment, is protected and nurtured to get the best outcome. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, that's absolutely the whole basis for the environment strategy. It's really underpinned by that climate lens, and it needs to be, because everything that we do, whether it's in the circularity space or in the biodiversity space, needs to have that regard to climate change, climate impact. And so any of our planting programs or any of our sustainability initiatives have to have regard to what has been happening and what is forecast to happen. So yes, the answer simply is yes, that has been a key factor in setting these high level directions and goals, but that detail is in those other plans. So this strategy is very much that umbrella document that pulls up some of those strategic directions and goals and sets the things like the urban forest canopy target, and says to the community, this is what we're aiming for, people, and we're aiming for this, but the detail of the plans, the urban forest strategy, the climate change plan or other plans will go into that level of detail and rigour around, and the analysis will be in those documents to inform how we get to that, the goal, if that answers your question.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Casey. Just following up from that, I understand obviously these bodies of work take time, but are you expecting to have some level of understanding with the urban forest strategy, sorry, I wrote it down so I didn't mispronounce it, before summer hits in, for all the work and value in this tree planting season, to make sure that we try and protect, if it is required, that we don't have a mass death of trees that we've just put in the ground this season?
Through you, Your Worship, it's not through the urban forest strategy that determines that approach. It's through our natural areas management plan in particular. So that again is another document that specifically will look at what they need to do to protect the biodiversity, to maintain the bush reserves, and weeding, and the maintenance regime for that. And then obviously there's a whole program and regime around our tree planting and how we do that going forward. So it's all interlinked, and yes, it's always evolving. So we're not relying on one piece of work to, inform our operations. It's a number of elements that will together, and iteratively inform changes as we go to achieve that best practice.
Councillor Penny, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. It's a fantastic strategy that's been put together, and as discussed, the retention of established and mature trees is also a key concern for local residents, especially when we're looking at new developments. We've spoken about the urban forest plan and how that will address opportunities to replant and introduce new plantings, both in the public realm and also encourage and support residents to facilitate that in the private realm. In terms of like the city's advocacy positions coming out of this document, and also the potential for that through the urban forestry plan, is that a consideration in terms of looking at what we, what I'm saying, there's elements that we can control as a local government, and there's areas that we can influence as well through leadership and guidance and recommendations, but there's also a lot that is taken out of our hands when we're looking at, say, large developers or state government developments. And my question is, does the urban forestry plan lend itself to develop advocacy positions? And I ask that as it sits under this piece of work that we're passing tonight.
Through you, Your Worship, we're still in development of that particular piece of work, and certainly, as I said, we'll still need to come back to Council as part of a briefing where that analysis and where it's positioning itself and those implementation actions that's specific to that piece of work you'll be able to vet and work through. But advocacy certainly is something that we look at in every aspect, and in this strategy where we've touched on advocacy is more around influencing some of those planning elements and how we can advocate for some of those sustainability elements, including trees, including other practices, to be part of that consideration in the assessment of the planning framework and embedding it into the process. Particularly now that we are preparing a new planning scheme, there's an opportunity there, but we've got to get it right, and we've got to make sure that the various state departments are supportive and on board with that, and it has the status that we want it to have, that we can enforce it and make it compliant and ensure that people are adhering to it without having to have a stick, if you like, for it. So two-part answer to your question. Urban Forest is coming back to you. You'll be able to see all the different elements of that particular piece of work. But this does have an advocacy element around those broader planning elements.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mayor Feasy. 16.1, page 51, under the heading Greener Operations, where the document is discussing about assessing whole-of-life costings and energy demand. You've specifically referenced concrete and plastic piping. Can you please speak to that transitioning from concrete to plastic piping for draining, that the cost that the cost implications of the longevity of concrete versus plastic have been considered, and what has the plastic drainage been used for in the city of Kwinana, and is there any higher level of maintenance required for plastic versus concrete? Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. So this city is not a big buyer of pipes. Most pipes are installed by land developers. So we have a lot going into the city all the time, but very little is done by the city. So this is really aimed at the land development industry. So cost is not a significant concern if they're on board. Ultimately, the cost is less for plastic than it is for concrete. The transport costs are less because you can get a lot more on a truck, and they're a lot safer. So even from a good corporate citizen perspective, it's a good thing for us to be doing because it improves the safety on construction sites within the city. In terms of the product itself, they've been used for a long time in Western Australia. I think 20 or 30 years they've been in the ground for. They are constructed to the same standard as concrete pipes, so they have an expected life of 100 plus years, and the materials used is the same material that you would use to reline a concrete pipe at end of life. In terms of ongoing maintenance, there's no additional inspection or maintenance regime for plastic versus concrete. There is a reduced risk in plastic to root ingress into the pipe, so over its whole life we're likely to get a lower cost. But the biggest reason and it's the reason it's in the environmental strategy, we are wanting to make that change in the land development industry is because of the lower carbon footprint.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just in the section on waste, I didn't see electronic waste or e-waste kind of highlighted as a key theme in this section. Could the city talk to how the issue of e-waste is being addressed through this strategy and through others? I just noticed it's a very rapidly evolving space, and one thing that came to mind was an issue that didn't exist a few years ago in a form of like the disposable vapes being electronic waste, which is one thing that's popped up and is very difficult to deal with.
Through you, Your Worship, it doesn't specifically state each type of waste stream in this strategy because, again, because of its nature as an overarching strategy, it talks about setting that goal and direction with the detail in the waste plan. So our waste plan and our waste education plans will then go into the detail of targeting particular areas of concern or areas that we want to focus in on to address that higher order direction that this will set. So the waste plan is coming up for renewal, and what we were waiting on was for the state's waste strategy to be released, which it just has. and responding to that, so that then we can update our waste plan accordingly to respond to that state waste strategy. So again, this strategy is not intended to get into every aspect of each of the goal areas. It sets that direction. Yeah.
Thank you. Just one follow-up, or not follow-up, another question, just
Sure.
more administrative. We've mentioned that some of this is a work in progress, but where there's goals, for example, around the canopy cover of say 22.6%, if that was to change in the future through the development of I guess the individual plans, does it then come back to council to adjust the overarching of environmental strategy?
That's correct. We would then update this strategy to reflect that target as a change, so that we are clear as an organisation what that direction is, and that the documents are aligned. What we might do if that were the case, if that percentage was deemed to change as per the urban forest strategy when it comes to council, we might put in there a recommendation that the environment strategy be amended accordingly to reflect that new target. So you don't have to see this again, but you've made that resolution and that change in that paper. So everything that has an environmental impact or may influence any of these targets or directions will certainly have regard to this strategy going forward once it's adopted.
Thank you. So it could be an kind of amendment, as you mentioned, so we wouldn't have to wait for the
You would-
two-year review.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to see this again. It would just change that target as part of that resolution when that comes ahead. So if any of the informing documents have a fundamental impact on that direction that we're setting, we can certainly make that adjustment. Keeping in mind that the review process is going to be quite iterative. We're going to we have a cross-functional team called the EMU, which is the Environment Management Unit, and we will be that team, which works from operations right to our sustainability team and our environmental planning team and others across the board. They will oversee the implementation plan in terms of making sure that there's alignment between the various informing plans and this overarching strategy. We'll be doing that once a year as a minimum, and then a minor review every 2 years, and then a major review will be aligned with the next major review of the strategic community plan or whatever that plan may be called in the future.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mayor Feasy. Sorry, I was just rereading the document as Councillor Brown was bringing me to attention. On page 58, under our goals, the fourth paragraph, which is the one sitting at the bottom of the page, it says the City of Kwinana will work with the community to reduce illegal dumping of waste, decreasing 2023 tonnage by 30% by 2028. Is that illegal dumping tonnage? Like, do we have illegal dumping in the tonnage level now? And is that regarding that particular comment? Thank you.
Through your worship, that's correct. So we're in the throes of working on a whole range of stuff in terms of initiatives in the illegal dumping space. That plan has been adopted, and that plan is being rolled out to address illegal dumping across the city, and that's working again across the organisation, from our operations team right through to our waste team, our rangers, and our fireys. They're all involved in this space. You see it with our CCTV cameras and our VMS boards going out to hotspots to try and deter incidents. We're working with state government, whether it's DBCA or DPLH, the Department of Planning, on around their land and dumping that's occurring on land that we don't manage but they have control over. So there's a lot of work happening in this space, and that target is coming from that plan. So again, the plan at this level is informing that direction and making sure that our operations and our actions are informing and working towards that particular target.
No more questions? Someone like to move that way? Moved Councillor Sargent, seconded Councillor Penny. You'd be no good in auction, Councillor Penny. Would either councillors like to speak? Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mayor Feasy. I just want to commend the City of Kwinana team for putting together a solid plan to help us aim to meet our net carbon zero 2025 goal, 2050 goals, sorry, not 2025, didn't say that, that was not the case, anyone watching at home, 2050 goals. It is just fantastic to see the City of Kwinana taking proactive steps through the officers, as Maria pointed out, to the entirety of the team that is the City of Kwinana staff that take this seriously, that want to preserve our environment and being proactive in making actions and creating this overarching document to lead further bodies of work. So fantastic team, thank you very much for all your hard work in this endeavour.
Councillor Penny.
Yeah, I'd also like to back up Councillor Sargent's comments here. This is such a solid piece of work. It's really accessible, easy to read. It indicates a clear pathway, and really commend the team that worked on this, because something to be very proud of.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against? I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. There's nothing on item 15. No, we've already done that. There's nothing on item 17. Item 18.1. Accounts for payment for the month ended 31st of July 2024. Any additional information? Councillors have any questions? Councillor Acker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just with some of the payment listings, some of the consulting services say what it's for, some don't. I guess for those watching at home, there are some councillors that ask a lot of questions behind the scenes, but for those that don't watch or not here in the gallery that might be reading online, can we make sure we get what those consulting services are for? Just consulting services for aquatic, whatever, small requests. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely noted that, and it's one of the things which we discussed today. So the way the system works is it pulls out sort of the first line from the description, so we'll work with staff to educate them around the descriptor that they put into it, so it's a bit clearer.
Any other questions? Someone like to move that way? Moved Councillor Acker, seconded Councillor Wood. Either councillors wish to speak? Anyone speak against? Put to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. There's nothing on item 19, nothing on item 20. Is there any late or urgent business? 22, reports of elected members. Councillor Acker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last committee meeting, I attended the Executive Appraisal Committee. Monday just gone, along with the CEO and the Deputy Mayor, I attended the South Metro Zone meeting, where I bumbled my way through a motion to ask WALGA to investigate and advocate for 4-year cycles in local government elections instead of 2-year cycles. This move could save the council $200,000 every couple of years by going to a 4-year cycle. The motion was defeated by 1 vote, but we'll regroup and go again. I'd also like to add that the Kwinana District's senior men's team had a win in the home qualifying final on Saturday, just gone. We came out 41-point winners, and the men go straight to a grand final at Revo Fitness Statement on September the 7th, and make the move up to C1s. So I hope the community can get behind them. Thank you.
Councillor Michael James Brown. We've gone
Thank-
back to paper.
Recyclable. On Saturday, the 17th of August, the Kwinana and Rockingham business community came together to recognise and celebrate local entrepreneurship at the annual RKCC Regional Business Awards. It was a black tie affair, and it was a fantastic evening on networking with both familiar and new faces, with plenty of stories to share by hardworking business owners who have not only chased a dream but also created so much opportunity for residents in our region. It was great to join City of Kwinana CEO Wayne Jack, Manager of Economic Development and Advocacy Lisa Smith, and fellow councillors Ivy Penny and Erin Sargent for the occasion. Special shout out to KCR IT Solutions, David Urick out of the Kwinana local, who was very deserving finalist on the night, and to Little Hanoi Restaurant, who were awarded the highly coveted Business of the Year award. And this year, the City of Kwinana sponsored the Business Startup category, awarded on the night to Adele from Hemingway HR Consulting. I'll take this opportunity to once more say a huge congratulations to all of the nominees and winners for 2024, and I look forward to seeing the Kwinana-Rockingham Regional Partnership grow to support local business owners to succeed through joint initiatives like the Rockingham-Kwinana Chamber of Commerce, and through an evolving suite of resources like networking events, learning opportunities, and business support grants. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Kenny?
Right, I attended the Kwinana Senior Sits. We're about to achieve our membership of 200 members. And then we've got plenty of new activities happening. On this Friday, we've got the Father's Day celebration from 11:30 to 1:30. With pasta is on the menu, followed by Dad Games. The committee continues to work hard to achieve our goals in their strategic plan, which we're moving along really well. Last Wednesday, I joined the Mayor, other councillors and the city staff to the business after hours at Costa Mushrooms. Costa is a team that is proud and passionate about growing healthy and nutritious and fresh premium mushrooms. They are a very diverse team that employs 80% female and has a 1% turnover in staff. They achieve this by celebrating their success with their employees by having regular barbecues, family activities, or individual recognitions for employees' outstanding contributions. Costa work practice is why they continue to be such a successful business. And I would like to wish Gary all the best. Very sad that you're going. Thank you for all your help over the last 3 years, and I hope everything goes well for you and enjoy your holiday.
Thank you, Councillor Koenig. Councillor Penny?
Thank you. I too attended the RKCC Business Awards, and just to add to the comment of my colleague there, it was great to see a lot of new faces up at the awards. It was, an honour that we were able to sponsor the. I'm going to forget the name. What was it? The Business Startup. That's what I was going to say. The new starters, but the Business Startup Award. But having attended that event in previous years, it was really good to see a lot of new, fresh faces and new businesses being nominated and getting through to the finals. So, looking forward to seeing how those awards flourish in the coming years. I also attended the Costa Mushroom Business After Hours, and it was really interesting to get an insight into that business, and also the important roles it plays in the local economy in terms of local employment opportunities. It was really fascinating, and the mushrooms were very delicious. We got to pick our own mushrooms at the event, and I also hosted a wine and cheese gathering before a performance at the Kulin Arts Centre prior to the last Great Hunt show that was presented there on Saturday night. It was a fantastic gathering. We had a lot of local community group representatives, friends and acquaintances from the Kwinana community, and the result of hosting that foyer gathering meant an additional 30 tickets were purchased to the show. And we also all had a good catch up and got to meet a lot of people who were coming to the show who came from the city or from Fremantle to attend the show at Kulin. So it was a good social activity, and great to fill the foyer full of laughter and chinking glasses and cheese. Another point that I'd just like to make is it's a shame that the Troy Morley has left, because another moment of pride this week was speaking to a fellow councillor at the City of Vic Park, town of Vic Park, who is also a sustainability lecturer, and pulled me up and commented on the strength of our Verge waste collection paper, and that local government is using it as a reference point for the development of their own policy, and had a briefing this week based on that work. And he said it was fantastic research. This is a senior lecturer in sustainability, and just said it's amazing work that's paving the way for other local governments. So I really wanted to pass that on to all the staff involved. Thank you.
Councillor Russ.
Nothing to report, Your Worship, but I would like to say personally on behalf of the Willard Village people, Gary, I wish you all the best. I know who people I speak to in local government and those in the wider professional community throughout Perth hold you in high regard, those that know you, so I wish you all the best in your future. Thank you very much.
Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mayor Feasy. I have my report, but I believe Councillor Brown and Councillor Penny and Councillor Kearney have basically touched on attending the Business Awards and the fantastic Rockingham and Kwinana Chamber of Commerce Business Networking event at Costa Mushrooms. So I feel that the only other thing I would like to say to one Mr. Gary Fisher. This is a man that I have worked with in my professional life as well as a councillor in the city of Kwinana. This is also someone that I've seen selflessly take a knee to help a lady when she fell over out the front of the hub or marketplace, if we're going to call it that. And on top of that, when I threw you a phone call going, oh my goodness, I have lost my volunteers to help me get Christmas hampers to get people to cars, and what am I going to do? Can you spare some staff? In no way expecting the director for community services for the city of Kwinana to rock up with his very best Christmas shirt and a can-do attitude to push a dodgy wheeled trolley to the car for over, I think we did over 487 individuals got Christmas from that event. But just thank you. You are a fantastic human being, and I wish you all the best in all your endeavours, and I know you're going to do well. That's good. Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Yeah, I've performed all the duties required of me. I attended SWEPDEF, which is South West Corridor Development Foundation meeting, where the yearly financial report was presented and accepted. I also attended the South Metro Alliance Environmental Forum, where the City of Rockingham gave a talk on what they were doing to enhance and protect their local environment. They also spoke of working with the state government to help protect the little penguins, which have drastically dropped in number. And they informed the meeting that the new immersive Penguin Centre will not be built on Penguin Island, but rather on the mainland adjacent to the island. A speaker also addressed the forum on pocket forests. Have you guys heard of pocket forests? No? Where was I up to? Pocket forest, which can be planted in very small areas, up to about 15, 20 square metres or larger, where children can, in small areas in schools, where the children can be involved in the planning and planting and maintenance, or in parks or small blocks of underutilised land where the community can also be involved in the planting. These small pocket forests are planted with local vegetation, which is quick growing, and within a very short period of time, the temperature within those pocket forests drops significantly compared to the surrounding areas. I also attended the Alcoa Refinery Kwinana Community Consultative Group. The jetty at the Kwinana Refinery is still being utilised, with approximately 2 ships per month loading alumina and 3 ships per month loading caustic. The increase of the price of aluminium has increased by 12%, and Alcoa's revenue has also grown because of that. The company has acquired another company called Alumina Limited, which has allowed for greater flexibility and strategic options for Alcoa. Alcoa stated that it is still committed to keeping operations in Australia. It has rehabilitated 652 hectares in WA, which is 11 hectares over its target. And they also said that every worker from its Kwinana refinery who wanted to be redeployed, this is over 150 workers, has been redeployed. They also stated that they are committed to continue their partnerships with the Kwinana Council. And Gary, so sad. You are such a fantastic worker and helper with great ideas and enthusiasm, and it's really sad to see you go. But unfortunately you're going, so I will wish you the very best, and I hope you have great success wherever you go, which I'm sure you will, and have a great holiday on top of that.
I was going to say, do you want to do a report, Gary? But then I realised you're not a councillor. Answers to questions. Neil, mayoral announcements, just briefly. Along with a number of other mayors in the region, I did a tour of the USS Emery Esland, which is basically a floating, what is it? It's a floating naval harbour thing, maintenance facility for the Virginia-class submarines, as well as that there was technical talk, as well as that there was a Virginia-class submarine in port, which we also had the opportunity to do a tour of. Last Friday, along with the CEO, I went for a wander along Wally's Walk. Does anyone know where Wally's Walk is? Part of the Kwinana Loop Trail. So we took Madeline and her husband and her dogs for a wander through the bush to talk about the Loop Trail, and try to convince her to find us some additional funds to do stage 2. Along with a number of other councillors, I also attended the Mushroom Farm. It was a great event. The staff from the Mushroom Farm certainly put on a great show for us. And then lastly, I also have to refer to the vegetarian lasagna gate and the Royal Commission that ensued, and as a result, Mr. Fisher is leaving the city. Thank you for your time. I'm sure you'll wish you all the best, Gary. The last time we worked together, came across each other, I think was in Northbridge in the late 90s, early 2000s, so I'm sure I'll see you again somewhere. There is one item of confidential business. Could someone move that we go behind closed doors? Moved, Councillor Rouse, second to Councillor Wood. Put to the vote, all in favour? Against? Carried. This is why you have a pre-prepared statement, Councillor Brown.